stood outside my parents' house in Seattle, gripping a small leather bag that held my promotion letter. The autumn air felt different that afternoon, colder than it should have been for October. I had spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment, even bought a new navy blue jacket because I wanted them to see me as successful as worthy. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the doorbell. I had driven 3 hours from Portland with one goal: to finally hear them say they were proud of me. I had no idea that in 30 minutes I would be told I should have never been born. Before we go further, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if you have ever chased approval that never came, please hit that like button and subscribe. What happened next in that house changed everything I thought I knew about family, about worth, and about freedom. Let me take you through the day. I stopped existing for my parents and started truly living for myself. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood just outside Seattle, where everyone knew everyone else's business. My father worked as a civil engineer for the city, and my mother taught second grade at the local elementary school. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family, but inside our home there was always an unspoken hierarchy. At the top was my older brother, Marcus. He was 4 years older than me, and from the day I was born it was clear he was the golden child. Marcus excelled at everything our father valued. He played varsity baseball in high school, had a loud, confident laugh that filled rooms, and majored in structural engineering just like Dad. He was everything they wanted in a son: strong, outgoing, traditionally masculine. I was different. I loved books more than sports. I spent my Saturday mornings sketching in my notebook instead of throwing a ball around. I was quieter, more thoughtful. I got straight A grades, but somehow that never seemed to matter as much as Marcus's home run at the regional championship. When I was 12 years old, I won a statewide creative writing competition. The award ceremony was on a Tuesday evening at the community center downtown. I remember standing backstage, scanning the audience for my parents. Mom was there sitting in the back row, but she kept checking her watch. Dad never showed up at all. Later that night, when I walked through the door holding my certificate and a $50 prize check, he barely looked up from the television. He said he had to attend Marcus's playoff game. It could not be missed. My achievement could wait. It always could. My 16th birthday fell on a Saturday. I woke up expecting the usual pancake breakfast Mom made for birthdays, maybe a small gift. Instead, the house was in complete chaos. Marcus had just gotten his acceptance letter to Stanford University, and our parents were planning a surprise celebration dinner for him. They had invited his friends, our relatives, everyone. When I came downstairs that morning, Mom was on the phone ordering a cake. She saw me and mouthed happy birthday, but never stopped her conversation. There was no cake for me that year. No song. That evening, I sat at the celebration dinner for Marcus, smiling and clapping, while inside I felt like I was disappearing. I graduated from college with honors and a degree in graphic design. The ceremony was outdoors on a bright May morning. Both my parents came, which surprised me. But during the entire reception afterward, they spent their time asking other parents about Marcus's internship at a prestigious firm in San Francisco. They barely asked me about my plans. When I tried to tell them I had landed an entry-level position at a design agency in Portland, my father nodded absently and changed the subject. I remember driving back to my apartment that night, wondering what I had to do to be seen. Years passed like that. I would call home every few weeks, and the conversations always found their way back to Marcus. He got engaged. He bought a house. He got promoted. My accomplishments were met with polite disinterest. When I tried to share my dream of becoming a creative director one day, of leading campaigns that could change how people see the world, my father laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but one that dismissed me entirely. He said, "That is not a real career, Cato. You are making pictures for advertisements." But something changed 8 months ago. I stopped calling as often. I focused entirely on my work, pouring every ounce of energy into proving myself not to them anymore, but to me. And then it happened. I was promoted to creative director at my firm. I would be leading a team of 12 designers, overseeing campaigns for major brands, earning $95,000 a year. It was everything I had worked toward. And for some reason, some stubborn, foolish part of me thought this would finally be enough. I decided to visit them. I called a week in advance. Mom answered, her voice flat and distant as always. I told her I wanted to come by on Saturday afternoon. She paused, then said fine. I bought that navy jacket and a bouquet of white lilies for Mom along with an expensive bottle of whiskey for Dad. The drive from Portland to Seattle took 3 hours. The whole way I imagined their faces lighting up. I pictured my father shaking my hand firmly, saying he was wrong about me. I saw my mother hugging me tight, telling me she always knew I could do it. I was so lost in that fantasy that I almost missed my exit. I grabbed the flowers and the bottle, took a deep breath, and walked up to the front door. My mother opened the door. She looked at me the way you might look at a delivery person, someone expected but not particularly welcome. She did not smile. She did not ask how my drive was. She just stepped aside and said, "Come in." I walked into the house that I grew up in, and it felt like walking into a museum of someone else's life. The walls were covered with framed photographs. Marcus, at his wedding. Marcus holding his newborn daughter. Marcus shaking hands with some important-looking man at an awards banquet. There was one picture of me tucked in the corner near the hallway from my high school graduation. It was small, faded, and slightly crooked. I set the flowers and whiskey on the kitchen counter. Mom glanced at them but said nothing. No thank you. No acknowledgement. She just returned to wiping down the already clean countertop. Dad was in the living room, sitting in his usual leather recliner watching a football game. He did not stand when I entered. He did not even turn his head. I said, "Hi, Dad." He grunted in response. I stood there for a moment, waiting for something more. Nothing came. I sat down on the couch across from him, my hands folded in my lap like a child waiting for permission to speak. I tried to make small talk. Asked about the weather, about their health, about the neighborhood. Mom gave me one-word answers from the kitchen. Dad kept his eyes on the screen. The commentator's voice filled the silence between us. I could feel my carefully rehearsed speech starting to crumble in my throat. Finally, I could not take it anymore. I reached into my bag and pulled out the letter. I said, "I have some news I wanted to share with you both." Mom walked into the living room, drying her hands on a towel. Dad finally looked away from the television. I held up the letter and tried to keep my voice steady. I got promoted. I am the new creative director at my company. I will be leading a team managing major campaigns for national brands. It is a significant position. I explained what the job entailed, how much responsibility I would have, the salary, the respect it commanded in my industry. I handed the letter to my father. He took it, barely glancing at the words. He set it down on the coffee table like it was junk mail. Then he turned back to the game. My mother picked up the letter, scanned it with empty eyes, and placed it back down. The silence that followed was suffocating. I felt my chest tighten. I asked, "Dad, did you hear what I said?" He sighed heavily, the kind of sigh that says he is exhausted by my existence. He picked up the remote and turned off the television. The sudden quiet was worse than the noise. He turned to face me fully for the first time since I had arrived. His expression was not angry. It was worse. It was tired, disappointed. He leaned back in his chair and said very slowly, "You know what, Cato? You are not the son I wanted." The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He continued, "I wanted 2 sons who were strong, who built things that mattered. Marcus is out there designing bridges, infrastructure, things that will last. And you are making pictures, advertisements, things people forget the second they scroll past them." His voice was calm, which made it worse. There was no heat, no emotion, just cold, factual disappointment. He said I wanted a son I could be proud of in front of my friends, someone I could talk about at work. When people ask me about my boys, I talk about Marcus. "I have nothing to say about you." I tried to argue. I said my work mattered, that branding and design shaped how people saw the world, that I was successful by any reasonable measure. He waved his hand dismissively. "Success? You call that success? You are nearly 30, and you are still trying to prove something that does not matter." I turned to my mother, desperate for someone to defend me, to say he was wrong. Then she said so quietly I almost did not hear it, "I wish I never had you." The room tilted. I gripped the arm of the couch to steady myself. She went on, her voice still soft, but every word a knife. "You were not planned, Cato. Marcus was enough. We did not want another child. You were an accident." A mistake I have had to live with for 28 years. She explained in that measured teacher voice she used with difficult students that I had always been different, that I had always disappointed them, that every time she looked at me she was reminded of what went wrong. She said, every birthday, every holiday, every phone call I have to pretend I care, but I do not. I never have. My father nodded in agreement.